a formal welcome to another Wellbeing at Home live event, a big virtual hug to our regular attendees, and a special welcome to those of you joining us for the first time. I say every week, and I will say it again, it's so uplifting to see all your familiar names and faces every week. And it's lovely that our community is growing too. It's really encouraging. So, every week we have new people join us. That's wonderful. So during this whole time of lockdown and since the pandemic literally turned our lives upside down, it's become really important and apparent that being healthy is our number one priority. And I always say that alongside this is being happy, because without one, the other one can't exist, certainly in my books. So if you're not happy, at some point your health will suffer and vice versa. So that's why we do our best to bring you experts, not just for your physical health, but also your mental and emotional health, as they're so intertwined. So our mission here, and I'm saying this mainly for the people who are new, because everyone who comes along regularly knows all this stuff, but our mission here is to bring you the tools and information to empower yourself to get there, or indeed to stay healthy and happy if you are already, and not to wait to get sick and then look for someone else to fix you. So although we know that that could be necessary for a lot of us at some point during our lives, I really feel like the responsibility is our own to keep our well-being at the top of our list. So big kudos to all of you who take the time and show up frequently, and to those of you who come for the first time, because it's it's a big deal to look after your own well-being. So well done for being here. For other news, thank you to those of you who kindly put a message in our 1 year of Wellbeing at Home group on our website. We sent out a newsletter last week, which had a link to that group. So thank you for those who've put some messages in there. And I also invited people to put themselves forward if they wanted to be part of like an informal focus group on how we move forward with it all. And so we've had loads of people respond to that. I'm very humbled by it, and I thank you, those of you who have offered to do that. And we'll be in touch next week with more details on how that's going to happen and the dates around that. If you have been coming regularly and haven't put a comment in the group yet, please can I ask you to do that. It's really helpful for us. And we are looking for constructive feedback, as well as all that lovely praise and positive comments that you give us. Constructive feedback is also really good for us. So put your ideas and thoughts in there. All ideas are great. So please feel free to do that. And and your feedback's always so very valuable for us and how we shape things moving forward, because ultimately it's for you. So that's great. Okay, so let's get on to today's subject, which I always call them the pesky hormones. They're so important. It's not until really the last few years of my life how I have realized how important they really are. Their functions include things like metabolizing our food, controlling our thirst and our hunger, maintaining our body temperature, regulating our mood. I mean, they really are they're kind of really integral to our whole system and how we live. So when they're out of whack, they can cause all types of problems, ranging from lots of uncomfortable symptoms, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today, to serious illnesses, including heart disease and diabetes. And in the past, we've had Dr. Stephanie Goodwin with us, who is the menopause guru. She's a doctor who's trained in menopause. And she's talked to us about how decreased levels of estrogen can bring on those types of diseases. So today we're taking a different approach, and we've invited Caroline Gaskin to join us, who's a natural health coach, and to talk about what we can do naturally to help ourselves with our hormones. So welcome, Caroline. It's a real honour to have you here. Thank you for being with us today, giving us your time.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for
Yeah.
inviting me.
Oh, no, it's wonderful to have you here. Um, so I think before we get into the whole subject of hormones, you've been helping women with this subject for over 20 years, but how did you get into this area? We're always interested to find out what drove people into the area that they have expertise in. So what made you do that?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a really good question because I've been going over that recently in my mind for various reasons. I had to write my biography for something new I was doing, or yeah, and you're rewriting your biography the whole time throughout your practice because somebody will want you to do a talk, or you might go and work at a new health centre and you need to write your bio. You might reshape aspects of your work and you've got to write it. And I had to kind of go right back. I delved back into photos as well. I needed to draw up some photos of me with my kids when they were younger, because really it was my children that got me into it. And I think for the first time in my life, I was making a choice for somebody else. And my son's 32, and I was making a choice for him, in pregnancy and in his, very early months. And I suddenly started, I've always read the label. As a kid, I was a reader. I just read everything, and I would read the label on the side of the cornflakes packet of breakfast or whatever was put in front of me. And my background's actually fine art textiles. And so I was always going to be an artist. I was going to be a practicing artist of some sort. But I always read stuff. And I think when I had him, I started to read the label. And really, I was like, I'm not sure I really want to give that to my son, actually. And that made me delve into, deeper, and us as young parents. And we started to make health choices. And the story is that he was 2 months old when he had a cough. And I was like, why is my new baby, breastfed and natural pregnancy and natural birth, why has he got this cough? And then he had a cough again at 4 months. And I was like, why has he got a cough again? And I didn't know enough about our family history, and I didn't know enough about health in general. And I went to the doctor and she said, I can give you a cough medicine with a sedative in it. And I was like, you're not drugging my baby to get to sleep because he coughs at night. That was it. And so I had to look for an alternative. And I don't know how I ended up at a natural health centre. I live in North London, over in Stoke Newington. And I met a homeopath, and we had a homeopathic remedy. And not only did she ask about his cough and how the cough was for him, but she wanted to know who he was with this cough. And I was really intrigued by that. It was a completely different approach to what I'd experienced with my GP. And she gave us a remedy and it worked. And so I was intrigued by that. And that became our first port of call, this natural health option for him. And then one day she said to me, I think you need to come and see me. And I don't really know what I said to her that day, but I was young when I had him. I was 26, I think, or 20. Yeah, it was the year I was going to be 27. And so you can do the maths on how old I am. And and he so I was young, and I went back to my pre-pregnancy weight 4.5 months into having him. Now, anyone who's had children knows that when you dip below the weight that you actually got pregnant at, it is you're going to dive into deficiency, basically. And so I was kind of running a little bit ragged, but I couldn't see that in myself. And I think she saw that, and she gave me a homeopathic remedy, which is a classic hormonal health remedy. And it completely got to the bottom of the barrel of who Caroline Gaskin is or was. And it just transformed. It began this transformational journey. And from that moment, I think I was hooked. I was like, this is, and it slowly came to get me as a practitioner, which is a slightly different story. But that's how I got into training as a homeopath. And really, once I trained, graduated in 2000, my learning was not more homeopathy. My learning was connecting with other complementary health practitioners in particular, but other health practitioners, be it, breastfeeding counsellors or fertility awareness teachers or whatever, as well as perhaps colleagues more traditionally within, and I might refer to counsellors in my work, depending on what my client needs. But that built my practice and the connectedness, this very holistic approach. So I do actually give an awful lot of nutritional advice and adjunctive advice, because everybody that walks in needs it.
Right.
So that's it in a nutshell.
That's it. So, but you're looking at an individual holistically, but it's interesting that it came from the baby.
Totally.
But actually, probably the baby's situation came from you, and how interconnected we all are, just not only as families, but generally, I guess, and through the food we eat and all of that. So
definitely,
I guess you've been dealing with women and their particular issues, let's call it hormonal issues, from adolescence to kind of midlife or perimenopause into menopause and then beyond.
Absolutely.
Throughout your career as a natural health coach. And what are you, I mean, we won't spend too much time on the adolescence, because for a lot of us it was a long time ago. but I think
yes.
I guess one thing I'm interested in, do you see a pattern? Do you see maybe women or young women who have problems through adolescence, or in their early, say in their 20s? Do you see that come back even once they've managed to balance, or do you see anything kind of from a family perspective, whether the mother also has issues? Is it hereditary? Is it through lifestyle? I mean, this is just a point of interest.
Yeah, no, great questions. And I think, one of the things when I'm teaching about menopause in particular, one of the things I always say is that I take a whole health history. So we do go back to how was it for you when it all started, and the technical term for that is menarche. So how was it for you, and how has it changed throughout your life, and at what point did it change, and what triggered that change? Because, if we go through a period of stress, crisis, grief, some kind of emotional context, experience, trauma, then that might take, front of house place for us for a period of time or for a long time. And what happens in that situation is our body deals with the stress in hand, and it puts our female hormones on the back burner. So for many women, their female hormonal pattern might change at that kind of point, or it might change at a point where they have, so I'm in my late 50s and the other side of menopause. Sometimes I can't believe, how do we get that far, but when I look at women who are in their 30s to 40s, for instance, they take a lot more of things like the morning after pill. So I might take a woman's whole health history, and I will find that it changed at that point when she took a very big dollop of synthetic hormones, and we're like, aha, or it might be that something has happened very gradually. And so something like fibroids tends to happen slowly over a period of time. And it might take many years sometimes for a woman to say, actually, do you know what? My periods have been getting worse over a period of time. Whereas if we suffer a sudden shock or trauma, or do something like, I'm using that as an example, the morning after pill, maybe just the birth control pill in general, and we come the other side of that, and realize that our cycle has really fundamentally changed. And so sometimes the changes are sudden and sometimes they're subtle. And sometimes that goes with the pathology. So something like endometriosis, for instance, again, is generally a condition which happens over a period of time. Sometimes something like that happens a lot faster for a woman. And that the way in which something happens is very much, as you've just said, part of your family health history. So sometimes it does pay to look at how it is in the family. So, if a woman comes in and I think, this looks like an underfunctioning thyroid picture, then I will be saying to her, is this in the family? Sisters, aunts, mum, is there anyone else who suffers from this? Because what I'm listening for is whether the woman in front of me has experienced something herself that has made the changes, or whether there's a family predisposition to doing that, and all of those things may come together, or it may be, oh, you're the first one in your family that's got this thyroid issue then.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. I think certainly in this country, culturally we don't test our hormones. So a lot of the time we don't know what's going on, and we normalize situations. So something could happen, you could start having heavy periods or whatever it may be, but you start to normalize that and you just kind of get on with life. And then, as you say, it could take quite a long time to get to an endometriosis, or it could get to fibroids or whatever it is. I think if we start off with just talking about what other symptoms people should be looking for, that they, actually, firstly, should people go and have hormone tests regularly?
I think that's a great question as well. I mean, look, blood tests with the doctor are free. And you may have to persuade your doctor that you need a blood test. I've got wonky hormones. I'm feeling like this every month. I think one of the things, in your menopause doctor may have talked about this, is that, doctors still don't know how to tell the difference between depression, anxiety, and perimenopause. And so a woman comes in her late 30s and early 40s, and she's showing signs of depression, she may well get antidepressants. And, she's showing signs of anxiety, she may get anti-anxiety, when actually the issue is hormonal change. And there's so much that you can do for that from a natural health perspective, which is great when, we are really raising awareness, which is fantastic, and there are a lot of, I usually say this, when I kind of preface this, there are a lot of movers and shakers. There's people going into the workplace, there's articles in magazines, newspapers, etc. And, bearing in mind, my first symptoms of perimenopause that were noticeable was when I was 42. So that was 16 years ago. And I didn't know that was perimenopause. And I went and I had a homeopathic remedy, and it set me back on track. And I didn't have anything go wrong for another 4 years. And then when I was 46, my energy crashed in the afternoon at 3 p.m. And I suddenly thought, am I anemic? And I went to the doctor for blood tests. And actually what showed up was low thyroid and high cholesterol. Now, those things often go together, and they often happen in perimenopausal period. But to be honest, by the time it shows up in your blood, it's pretty serious, because the doctors will say, you need some medication. Now, at that point, it's nice if you're informed enough to make a choice. Do you need medication, or is there something more natural you can do? Because obviously I'm a natural health practitioner, I thought, I want to try to do this without thyroxine. I want to do everything I can, because I don't particularly want to take thyroxine. And I looked, I'm somebody who reads the label. And I totally accept, I support many, many women through all sorts of medications. So we make choices from where we are, and I happen to be in that place. So blood tests are useful, and it's definitely the first place that I say to women, go and get a blood test from your doctor. Let's find out if there's anything that we can pin here. Obviously, I'm taking the case, so I can, I've got a pretty good idea. I'm like, this sounds like that, but you need to go and get an examination, or you need to go and get some blood tests, and certain things will lead me to say, you need a pelvic scan. You need to see if you've got fibroids going on here. And if you have, it will direct how I prescribe, perhaps. If you haven't, then I know that I can say to you, well, you could do an awful lot, for instance, by taking some essential fatty acids, and that will help rebalance your hormonal cycle. But if you've got pathology, you're going to need those essential fatty acids and a whole host of other things if you want to do it naturally. If you want to sort of do it foot in both camps, then fine, we can do that. So other types of tests that you can do, for there are urinary tests, and there are body temperature tests that can help look at something like thyroid. And there are the best test of all for hormones is a saliva test, where you do a 24-hour saliva test, and your saliva is tested at key points to see which hormones are out of action or out of kilter or over functioning. And that can be really interesting, because if, for instance, it's a stress response that's going on, then we really need to see that profile of the cortisol, which is pumped out by the adrenal glands, is really what's dominating the picture. And then that can really help with, which foods we eat, and which superfoods maybe we go to, which kind of lifestyle choices we can make about what we can put in place, so we can create a health plan based on some findings. So, just like kind of, I don't know, if you wanted to renovate your house, you're going to do a survey first, analyze it, and then put in a design, a health plan, and then you tweak it as you go along. It's the same as anything, really.
But before, okay, let's say, why do women come to see you? What kind of symptoms are they having? Because not everybody knows they've got a thyroid problem, for example. So what should they be looking out for? So before it gets to that point.
Yeah, so I think a good way of describing the perimenopausal period is, so it's going on for much longer than it ever used to, and it's a little bit like when a woman comes in and she's experiencing premenstrual symptoms, so premenstrual symptoms really shouldn't happen at all. If they're happening for 1 or 2 days, when we're feeling a bit low, our energy's going a little bit low, we're perhaps chilly, the bowel might go a bit slow, these types of things that most women, or they might say, I feel a bit clumsy before my period, or I want certain foods, or I fly off the handle at my boyfriend, these types of things show us that, what sphere, if you like, needs to have some balance in. So it could be mental, emotional, could be physical. And those, to my mind, all of those can be addressed naturally. But when we see that going on for sort of 9 or 10 days, then a woman's really compromised, and what we're looking for with a prescription is for that time to shorten, because we really shouldn't feel rubbish for 7 days before the period, or 10 days. We really shouldn't have negative symptoms around ovulation, for instance. So, ovulation, the libido should spike a bit, but if we're getting headaches and we're getting pains at that time, then really that's where we need some support, so it's, I think one of the things that I always come back to with women's health is that so often women go to the doctor and you're kind of given a response that, well, you've got these problems because you've got periods, and that's not good enough as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, no, that's true. And and a lot of us of a certain age have been conditioned to think that,
Absolutely.
And I've told a story on here before on when I was perimenopausal and I had horrific gum pain every month. It would come and I'd rush to the dentist, and the dentist would, God knows how many x-rays I had, and he's like, there's nothing wrong with you, you're just clenching your teeth, he would say to me. And eventually, we worked out after many years that it was hormone spikes. It was what was going on, and it happened the same time each month. The dentist didn't have a clue what was going on. So I mean, that's just one example. But my point is, because there's just such a lack of information now. There's more information out there. But then I'm just going to take some questions, and then we'll go on. Once you go through menopause, what to look out for then. So Teresa asked, why don't you want to take thyroxine? Isn't it a natural hormone? Good question.
No. Well, it's just not true, actually. Thyroxine, levothyroxine, etc., is synthetic. You can take You can take products made from pig's thyroid or cow's thyroid. So you can take a naturally occurring, whatever you take. It's interesting. I say there are 3 pathologies where the body is always working very, very hard to maintain a regulation or balance, to come back to our title of our song, is so particularly with thyroid, blood pressure and blood sugar, it can go up and down a lot depending on our emotions, food we eat, things we're exposed to, etc. So we do need to listen into what those particular organs are telling us. And what I find with the thyroxine, and this is a really good thing to look out for anyone who's on it. So thyroxine is synthetic, but things like Armour, which is pig's thyroid, you can buy bovine thyroid supplements, which don't tend to be prescribed unless you go to a private doctor. They might use bovine, but there are several supplement companies that use bovine. That's cow thyroid. What you need to do is very much listen into your body, whatever you take. And if you find that your thyroid symptoms change because you've had a new medication, do go back to your doctor. So what we're finding, unfortunately, since Brexit, and since the market has been flooded with cheaper products or different products, what we're finding is that a woman might be absolutely fine on her thyroid medication or her HRT for years and years, and then get a new brand and suddenly is upset by the fillers and binders, or the way that that is put together, the way that it is compounded, is called, where it's compounded in the pharmaceutical companies. So if that's you and you're listening, you're thinking, do you know what, suddenly I've got dry skin, dry hair, or the bowel is too fast. I've seen that a lot. Women's been absolutely fine. And normally on an under-functioning thyroid, the bowel will tend to be slow. The energy will tend to be low. Skin tends to be dry. Mood tends to be low. Sluggish, can't get going, tired, energy on the floor, that kind of picture. So if you suddenly find that your bowel is fast on a new medication, for instance, definitely go and get that checked, try and get back onto the medication where you're a bit more balanced. So yeah, I didn't want to take it because, I read the label and saw that ultimately, thyroxine, I'm quite a sensitive person, that thyroxine leads to heart issues, and that's just reading the label. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I just thought, no, I want to try and avoid that.
And because this is a question, actually, someone said it, Diane said it, but it would be my natural next question. What can people do naturally then for
thyroid?
Yeah.
And the key one is to eat seaweed that doesn't come from the Pacific Ocean. so kelp and seaweed in general is rich in iodine. What the thyroid is trying to do is take up iodine, and iodine functionally is we see it in the thyroid because the thyroid is taking it up from the food that we eat, and then it's distributed throughout the gut in particular, and there it has a role in our immune function. So iodine is actually the second most important element to us, and a really interesting first most important element, this is from our periodic tables, is if you remember those from chemistry, is oxygen. Next one is iodine, and the next one is one of my favorites, which is magnesium. So iodine has a key role in our immune function, and a fascinating thing that I only learned recently, and I've been studying all this for years and years, and maybe the studies only came out recently, is that women who are struggling to breastfeed, they feel like they haven't got enough milk, can really do well by boosting their iodine levels. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. So, and another thing that I found just while talking about iodine, so historically people might have taken something called Lugol's iodine, which is drops of iodine. And I find these days that for various reasons, and I can tell you what they are, the thyroid, which is a butterfly-shaped organ in our throat, it is a very, like I've said, it's a sensitive organ. The tissue is very sensitive to radiation, to waveform radiation, and the Earth's magnetic radiation and things like Wi-Fi, 3G, 4G, 5G, etc., mean that the thyroid can suffer quite a lot of damage. It's also affected by fluoride, which in the UK we don't put in the water that much. Actually, you need to read the label, find out from your water authority. But for women with women in general, the thyroid is a gland. It's one of the glands in our body, which all of the glands pump out some kind of hormone when's required. And the thyroid is sensitive to, as I've said, radiation. So it needs to take up iodine for its function. So we can eat seaweed, preferably something like dulse from the Atlantic, from our shores. We have, what is the term for it? In Wales, it's Welsh lava bread, which is a traditional Welsh thing. Yeah, that's the same as nori, the Japanese seaweed. So a little bit of seaweed every day will help restore your thyroid. Eating protein regularly, so not necessarily animal protein, but making sure that your meals are balanced and that you have protein at every meal. So to make a complete protein from vegetable sources or vegan sources would be something like beans and rice. That makes a more complete protein. So eating well-balanced meals, eating protein at every meal. Maybe if you're vegan, vegetarian, which I was going into menopause, I had to change the way I ate in order to balance my thyroid. And so I trained myself to eat fish a couple of times a week and to eat eggs a couple of times a week. And there's lots we could say on that. But another thing that the thyroid is sensitive to, so taking fluoride out of the water, filtering the water that we drink, not using fluoride in the toothpaste. And another factor that the thyroid is very sensitive to is something called glyphosate. So there are older studies that show that the thyroid and gluten is a conversation. So it's like, should you be having gluten in your food if you've got low thyroid? I'm actually of the opinion that what we need to get out of the equation is glyphosate. Glyphosate is a chemical, is a pesticide which is sprayed on North American wheat before it is harvested. And the reason for that is that the reason it's sprayed on grain in general is that it desiccates the grain, so it dries it, so you can harvest on any old day, come rain or shine. And what that means is that glyphosate then is on the product that we grind up and make into flour. And that glyphosate mimics one of the amino acids that cycles through the thyroid, and it also cycles through the pineal gland. So the pineal gland releases melatonin. Melatonin helps us sleep. So if a woman can't sleep at menopause, I'm like, great, let's just change the grain, go for organic, go for sourdough. Many of us become more sensitive at menopause. And so we find that, and this might come back to the gum stuff and the mouth symptoms associated with menopause and allergies. We find that we are more sensitive to things. And so you might find that, some of the skin products that you're using, some of the foods that you're eating, suddenly you don't tolerate. And that can take time, as you just said, around your gums, to figure out. And so you might not realize that actually you've become sensitive to something like yeast. And yeast is a big sensitivity. If a woman's bloated, uncomfortable before her periods, she's got oral symptoms, I might be like, actually, I think you need to I might do a food intolerance test. So this is another type of test that can be useful. Do I digest those proteins still? And we can change. So why might we suddenly become incapable or find it difficult to digest proteins at menopause, certain proteins? And that's because as we get to the age of 50, we lose the capacity to make certain digestive enzymes. And the ones that digest the proteins are called proteases. So, if we've got a gum problem or we've got a tooth problem and we're not chewing efficiently, we don't produce those digestive enzymes. If we're rushing to eat our food, this is what happened to me. I was rushing. My partner was away. One of my children was the other side of the world. My daughter was at uni. I was working busy, and I just wasn't paying attention to what I was eating. I'd begun to eat vegan without really realizing I was rushing my food. And so I wasn't coming to a meal prepared to eat efficiently, which is chewing my food, eating good food, it's eating slowly, these kind of things. So it's a little lesson to me. And I felt quite sad to realize that I wasn't looking after myself very well. So it's a learning.
It's so easy to fall into that, isn't it? Especially when you're used to looking after everyone else around you, and and you forget to look after yourself. Yeah. Really, and I find that a lot with people in this industry as well. We preach to others to look after themselves, and then we don't do it for ourselves. But we're looking after everyone else. But
exactly, that's why I felt so sad. I was like, this is terrible.
Yeah. But I think, okay, so let's say that's great advice. Thank you about the thyroid. And in fact, we had Candice, one of our naturopathic nutritionists, has done a session in the past and talked about iodine and seaweed and for the thyroid. And she recommends a brand called Sea Greens, which is a British brand.
Perfect. They're very good.
Yeah, they're really good. And you can find her recording. So she made a recipe using, I don't know, I can't remember actually, but she used seaweed in it. And it was, you can find that recording on the website if anyone wants to watch that. So yes, it's all really great advice. Now, what happens when you've seen menopause and you're on the other side, and a lot of people start to take HRT because, estrogen naturally reduces, and we hear now all these studies coming out about how a lack of estrogen can cause things like diabetes and heart disease and, actually serious illness, and how as women, we're living a lot longer than we originally were, so we need to supplement with estrogen. What is your view on that, number one? And number two, how do you deal with it?
I think so what happens at menopause is that your ovaries stop making estrogen because you don't have to have that much estrogen anymore because you're not trying to make babies. And what happens is that your adrenal glands take over the role of producing the estrogen that you do need and you should have for all of those reasons: heart, bones, musculoskeletal system, etc. And so a lot of the nurturing of that is things like grounding practice, restorative practice, time out in nature, creating time in your life for you, making sure that you're not rushing around doing stuff for other people will ensure that your adrenal glands are getting a rest. It might be that you change your relationship to coffee, because coffee, red wine, cheese, oranges, the things that stimulate the adrenals, that force the adrenals to do too much work, so it may be that we adjust our diet. It may be that we introduced a superfood like ashwagandha to help balance adrenals and ovaries. Ovaries still have some part of the conversation. The womb still has some part of the conversation. It's just not as powerful. And I would say the biggest key is grounding practice and balancing practice. So as an example, in Chinese medicine terms, the liver is a yang organ and the kidneys are yin organs. And the kidneys, adrenals and ovaries are on the same meridian in Chinese medicine terms. And they have, as yin organs, they've become depleted in their energy. And the liver is a yang organ, which is often stuffed full of too much junk. And so cleansing, detoxing, letting go of that yang stuff, it might be heavy metals, it might be pesticide residues, chemical residues, etc. Cleansing, detoxing for the liver, and nourishing and boosting and energizing the kidneys is the role. So there are foods that we can eat to nourish the kidneys besides seaweed. There are foods that we can eat to nourish the adrenal glands. And things like restorative yoga work better for most women than yin yoga, because yin yoga encourages us into the yin state, whereas actually we want those yin organs which are depleted to be, for their energy to be lifted, to be boosted, to be nourished, to be kind of bounced back a bit, you know. And that's so things like, you know, insomnia, low energy, chilliness, tiredness, all of those things need, you know, we need to remineralize and nurture those organs. And so in terms of, you know, I always say to women, it's like you need to have non-negotiable me time.
Mhm.
And the other side of that, you're going to be a nicer person, you know, and you're not going to snap and fight back, or you're going to have energy for life, you know.
Yeah, it's interesting. I see this with a lot of women who go through menopause. It's like almost like the beginning of their lives again. It's like the second stage of their lives where they can, you know, find themselves again and reevaluate what's important in their lives at that point in time. But then it takes work, right? It really takes work, because we have to shift completely what we were doing before. And, you know, once we find out what's important to us and what is, you know, how we want to live that second part of our life, so to speak, it's like dedicating ourselves and changing habits. And those habits have been set over, say, 50, 55, whatever it is, you know, 40, 45 to 50 years. So it's a lot of hard work. I understand why people take HRT.
Totally,
I really do,
yeah.
because it's like easy, you know, it's just a much easier way of dealing with it than doing all this work. But even when you do take HRT, I think you still need to do this work, right? Because you're just addressing one part of it. And it's really, as you say, nurturing yourself, starting to, you know, you've done all the looking after everyone else at that point. So it's now time to start looking after yourself. But it's changing those habits. It's really interesting. I find it a fascinating.
Yeah, me too. And I think, you know, I think that it's part of the hormonal matrix, you know, that we are yes women when we are fertile, because how are you ever going to make a baby unless you say yes, you know? And then there's a point the other side of it when you've got to start saying, actually no, in order for me, you know, to give back, I have to have some space. And there is tremendous giving back. I think women's lives can be so rich the other side of menopause, and I don't see the things that we have to put in place as difficult. Personally, I think, you know, essential fatty acids, skin brushing.
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, I think
so tell us, because you mentioned to me the other day the Holy Trinity, right? And I really want to get into that. Let's talk about the Holy Trinity of keeping ourselves healthy.
The Holy Trinity, I call them, is basically essential fatty acids, because fats are what we make hormones from, and we need decent fats in our life. And fats have been demonized, and women are the best of all at demonizing fats, you know, because we kind of have been wired to think that fats make us fat, which of course they don't. You know, good quality fats, omegas 3, 6, 9, 7, in the right proportions, really help all of our systems function. So if we want good heart health, we need to have the right fats. You know, if we want circulatory health, if we, you know, and whatever our issues are, we can tweak things a little bit. So we need essential fatty acids, and we need good quality ones, and they should be, if we're going to take a supplement, cold pressed. They should, you know, preferably be in a liquid form. We might want to look at how something is encapsulated if we're taking a capsule, you know.
Do we need to take supplements, Caroline, or can we get them? Can we get enough naturally from food?
These days, unfortunately, our food is so denuded, really, even if it's organic, you know, it is demineralized. Most of us don't eat 80% raw, which is what you need to do in order to get enough essential fatty acids. So, you know, a few essential fatty acids will really help. I'm not a big fan of fish oils. I think we need to, anyone who's watched Netflix Seaspiracy will realize that we can't keep doing this to our oceans at the rate we are, and that you know, there are phenomenal plant oils around, and things like eating grass-fed butter, avocados are good, coconut oil. There are essential fatty acids in our food. We just need to find them, and so it's a bit of learning for sure, but it's not difficult to put that into your life. So that's the fats that we need.
Sorry, before you carry on, can you give us a good brand for supplements?
Yeah, I have a brand which I use for my clients, which is called Aquasource. So that is a liquid essential fatty acid. There's a brand called Together, which is an encapsulated oil, and that comes in a shell made of algae. So I'm happy to refer to that, which is quite useful. Okay. So traditionally, oils are encapsulated, or generally you'll see they're encapsulated in a gelatin capsule, because that only gelatin will hold it needs to be a jelly-like thing because it's an oil. So a glycerin or cellulose or whatever it is, cellulose capsule, I think they usually use for herbal stuff, that won't work. So so Together's a good brand as well, Aquasource and Together, and there are others on the market. Okay. And then the other one that is really important and super easy is fermented foods. We don't necessarily need to take probiotics over the counter. If we eat a variety of fermented foods, we can rewire the microbiome, the gut flora. And with a diversified gut flora, we will make the melatonin that we need. So melatonin helps us sleep. Serotonin helps us feel good. With the right gut flora, we generate the brain chemicals that we need. So if we are feeling low or we can't get to sleep, in fact, the first place we need to look is the gut. If we have difficulty with absorbing certain foods, the first place we need to look is the gut. So this diversifying and by that I mean things like kefir, which is proven to reduce cholesterol. And that could be a water kefir, a milk kefir, kombucha, kimchi, even things like a raw, an unpasteurized cheese will have lots of a certain type of probiotic in it. So if for many women with a pathology, I would get them onto a probiotic from the Bifidus group, because the Bifidus group have been proven, or are increasingly proven, to help women with hormonal issues. So that can be really handy, because the Bifidus group help us absorb B vitamins. So things like anxiety, stress, polycystic ovaries, less so with fibroids and endometriosis, but I'd be looking at, certainly with endometriosis, I'd be looking at Bifidus.
We've yet to see. And this is all about keeping the adrenals happy.
And it's about helping the body absorb nutrients efficiently. So fermented foods mean that if you ferment vegetables, you will absorb other foods. You'll be diversifying your gut flora. And when you've diversified your gut flora, you absorb the food that you eat more efficiently. Interestingly, when you ferment vegetables, you make the minerals that are in, or the nutrients in those, including minerals, more bioavailable. That means you get more value out of the food than it was when it was just raw, which is amazing.
That is amazing.
It is amazing.
So interesting.
Isn't it? So sauerkraut, you get more out of sauerkraut than you would out of the cabbage. So it's about, and the thing is, well, about these tastes, which is really, there's so much we could talk about, but we are attuned, because of processed foods, we're attuned to sweet and we're attuned to salt. And we've forgotten how to eat sour, which is the fermented foods, and bitter, which is the green foods. The green foods, bitter foods, help us balance our sweet cravings. So if a woman's suffering at menopause from sweet cravings, like, why do I want to eat these foods? I never used to eat these. I've got a real problem. I just want to eat carbs and sweet food. Then it's like the key is to eat a plate of greens every day, because that will stimulate your liver to release bile to digest fats, and it will help balance your sweet sugar cravings. So fermented foods, fats, and the other one, which I love, as I said, is magnesium. And so magnesium is super easy to get into your life.
But you said not through capsules, right?
Yeah, try and do Epsom salt baths, or better use spray oil. It's like a light magnesium spray oil. There's a couple of other brands available now. Super cheap. I mean, you're literally looking at.
And why not the supplements?
We don't absorb it as well in a supplemental form. There are foods that are rich in magnesium. A key, if you are an absolute chocoholic, it shows that you need magnesium. So go over to eating raw chocolate, or raw cacao. Using that in your cooking, your food, and cacao is really rich in iron as well. So if you've got heavy periods, cacao can be a really great superfood. So your body's asking for that for a reason. It's just go raw rather than Cadbury's.
Yeah. Absolutely. And with Cadbury's, you could eat, huge packet very easily, but with raw you can, you just need a little bit, and it satisfies you, doesn't it? It's just enough.
It does.
You can see all the addictive substances they put in that.
So my holy trinity is fats, ferments, and magnesium.
And you said about the body brushing, because we've done that before, like the lymph stimulates the lymph.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that as well.
Yes. So what you need to do before a bath or a shower is brush your skin with a natural bristle brush, and you brush from the extremities towards the heart. And what that does is it stimulates your lymph to return the interstitial debris. It's like where we dump this when the cells have done their work, they dump what they don't need anymore into the intercellular fluid. And that helps it travel back, the lymph travel back to these big ducts in above the heart, basically. So we brush from the extremities, palms, soles, feet, hands, as if you're brushing a horse or a dog, quite firmly with a natural bristle brush, dry before you shower. And then that will also stimulates the skin to, shed its dead skin cells. And it also helps stimulate a hormone called leptin, which is the skinny hormone. It has receptor cells just under the skin. So it stimulates leptin to do its work more efficiently. So skin brushing is amazing. And if you do that followed by your regular shower and then a cold shower, which you might swear for a whole week having a cold shower, but after a while you love it, you can fundamentally change like your body temperature, stimulate your system to work more efficiently. It's brilliant. I sort of almost challenge anybody not to feel better after a month of doing that every day before a shower.
Yeah, amazing. Really brilliant advice. Thank you so much. There is one other question I just want to address here from Caroline, which says, I don't even know what this is, spagyric remedies. She has polycystic ovaries.
Spagyric remedies. Gosh, that is quite out there. That is quite niche.
We've got very interesting people in this community who are very well informed. So yeah,
that's great. So I'm a homeopath, and we make remedies from lots of interesting things, and a certain way of preparing things. And actually, to be honest, I don't know that much about it. But is spagyric. So you can have spagyrically prepared herbs and homeopathic remedies, to my knowledge, and it is prepared in a particular way. So I think very dynamic. I might go off and study that myself. But yeah, I've seen spagyric remedies. I've never particularly prescribed them. Was there a particular question around that?
She's just saying any advice on them, because she has PCOS, she has polycystic.
Yeah, I mean, there would definitely be specific spagyrics for that. I'll tell you what you might be interested in is there is a type of homeopathic remedy which is they're called homeobotanicals. There are many groups of what we call combination remedies. So homeobotanicals are herbs prepared in a certain way and homeopathic remedies put together. There's a big group of homeopaths using those in the UK. I don't use them myself, but only because I've got a huge pharmacy of stuff that I know and love, and I don't feel like I'm grown up enough yet or something. But Homeobotanicals, really lovely track record for kind of bringing together, because herbs are material, superfoods are material, mainstream medicine, HRT, thyroxine are material. That means that if you take more of it than the recognized dose, you know, you're going to start to feel unwell or something. And then something like homeopathy, flower essences, other forms of natural healing, craniosacral therapy, etc., are much more vibrational or energetic medicine. So they have quite a different quality. And the spagyric, I've seen both homeopathic and herbal. So
it's very subtle.
Very subtle. Yeah.
Amazing. And I think subtle sometimes very effective. We're just not trained to think it is, but it definitely can be. So, gosh, we've run out of time.
I can't believe that.
We could go, I mean, it's gone by really quickly, hasn't it? We could listen to you for hours.
I feel like that was 5 minutes.
Look over it. Someone, Diane says we could listen to you all day. So it's so interesting. And thank you so much. And so we just to sum up, Caroline's Holy Trinity. I'm going to put that on the forum. The skin brushing magnesium Epsom salts, the essential fatty acids, and what was the third one? Oh, I forgot the third one.
Fermented foods.
Fermented foods.
Don't forget your ferments. Yeah.
Don't forget your ferments. FFF. Don't forget your ferments. So fermented foods, and actually, it's not that difficult to ferment your own food, right? And I think maybe we'll do a session on that one.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
We'll do that. So so thank you so much, Caroline, for being with us and
thank you
sharing all this great knowledge.
Oh, it's so nice to chat to you, Stella. Thank you.
I've got to say, you don't look like you've got a 32-year-old. You really don't. You look amazing.
Do you know what? It's so weird. Anyone in the audience who's got adult kids, there's just this bit where you're walking down the street with them and you're going, I can't believe I pushed them out. And it's like, and then you kind of like, because when when I was feeding them, it was so important, and I wanted to feed them for however many months it was, and now I just think, really?
Oh, I know. I was saying to someone last week, my son's finally moved out, and but he still shows up to eat.
Oh, yeah.
So he's still, I'll get a text, I'm coming over tonight to eat, and I'm thinking, oh gosh, here we go again. And because he knows, I'm still thinking about him like he's 8, and that I have to feed him something really nutritious. I can't just plonk something on the plate, and he knows that. He's very clever. So,
how old are yours? Can I ask?
I only have one, and he's 20. He's about to be 26, so I can't believe that either. Because I look at him and I think, wow, are you mine? It feels like yesterday he was 5. It's really weird. But anyway, thank you. Someone's commenting on your Roy Lichtenstein artwork in the background. And, amazing. Well, she was a fine artist, a textile artist to start off with. So, and hopefully one day you'll come back and talk to us again. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being with us. And we'll share Caroline's details on the forum. So if you want to contact her, you can see all of that there. And thank you everyone for being with us, coming along again. Have a wonderful week ahead. Next week, our subject will be coming out of lockdown, and that's going to be actually more of an interactive session, because I think we've been in lockdown for so long that some of us have a bit of anxiety about coming out of that, and how do we get back into, or we don't want our lives to go back to what they were as well. So there's that too. And we'll be discussing the subject. It's an interesting subject. Everyone's got a different view, but we're looking forward to that. So we'll send out an email on that during the week. Looking forward to seeing you then. In the meantime, have a wonderful week ahead. Stay healthy, stay well, keep smiling. And sorry I can't share my music, but anyway, I'll put it on. I'll put that on the forum. So if you're on Spotify or anything, you can find it. So good to see you all, and take care. Lots of love to everyone. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.